I think the worst time was last year when we just stopped growing. We were finding it hard to deliver on the promises that we had made to our investors and to keep the momentum that we had. Because we tripled the business in year two. And so it just seemed we could do it every year. And the way I managed it was, first of all, listen to others and take advice because I had not done it before. And I got really good advice. Some of the advice that I got was size down, go back, reel back a little bit of the effort, cut your cost, go back to fundamentals, eliminate any waste, and then restart. And that was what we did. It was like we had hired a lot of people were very expensive. And when the sales were not coming in, then we were burning cash and we were having to take more debt. And so at that point, I made the decision of getting rid of everybody that I didn't really absolutely fundamentally need in my business at that time, as hard as it was. But it was the right thing to do. And that gave us a reset and reevaluate what might work or not work, but not have to worry about burning so much cash every month. And that's what I did. And it turned out to be the right decision.
This is JumpStart, where women-led early-stage beauty brands learn counterintuitive insights to accelerate their profitability from $1 million to $100 million without spending a fortune on ads, agencies, influencers, and mindless distribution. With your host, Rohit Banota, ex-P&G and founder of the Toronto-based Jump Accelerator. Together, we can create a more humane, conscious, and beautiful planet, a woman's world. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell notifications.
Hey, Sonsoles, I welcome you to What Beauty Founders Do Not Know podcast. This is Rohit Banota, founder of Jump Accelerator. Earlier, this podcast was called JumpStart Beauty Brand. And then I had to explain that the theme is what is it that beauty founders do not know. And I thought, why not just name it What Beauty Founders Don't Know podcast. Sonsoles is a hardcore CPG veteran, having worked with the best CPG brands out there and companies out there. She worked with P&G for 25 years. She was the GM for body care, hair care brands. Then she worked with Loreal for quite a few years. She was the GM, country manager, if I'm right, for Spain. And she founded a hair care brand called Better Not Younger, which is the first of its kind hair care brand for mature women. And it's causing quite a stir in the market. She recently launched in Ulta, and she will give us more details as to when that launch happened. Over to you, Sonsoles. Is there anything you want to say, or shall we deep dive with the questions?
Let's go right ahead. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So let's start with your story, how it all led to launching of Better Not Younger and why the name Better Not Younger. Let's start with your story. I have my questions on your story too, but I just want you to get started first and then I'll keep poking.
Absolutely. So as you said, I had a long career, a corporate career, probably not an entrepreneur typical route that goes from almost 28 years in corporate to go and create a brand. But that is my story. I had left L'Oreal. I was very tired and I was very ready to not do anything and just retire, according to me. And that's what I did. I moved to Miami. And of course, 6 months later, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? I am 53 and I'm not ready to stop working. I just cannot do it. And so I started thinking that I was going to get back to the corporate world. And I actually started interviewing. And in one of the interviews that I did was actually in a mid-sized hair care company. And when I was there and I was walking around, they gave me a tour of the plant and the offices. And I kept looking around. And the first thing I thought was, number one is, I don't want to do this anymore. Not like this. And number two, I know how to do this. I can do it myself. And that's when I started thinking that I really wanted to launch my own brand. Now, what brand in what segment? That's when I decided to go into this aging hair or aging population segment, which is an idea that I'd had for a long time. Why? Because when I had been inside the industry, it had always surprised me how everything we did, and you worked in some of these companies, you always had to create a brief. And in the brief, you always had to start, the first line was target consumer. All of our briefs were women 18 to 44. And I would joke in the room, it's what happens with women after 44? They disappear, they die, what's going on? It was a joke in the room. And then it wasn't funny anymore because it was me. So it always stuck with me that women after 45 were not even in any consideration, at least not of these big companies. And yet, as I looked at myself and looked at my friends, and I said, there's a lot that we can do for her. She's interested in beauty. She's going to live for many more years. So why not give her something?
Perfect. So that was the insight that led to Better Not Younger. I'll just go a little bit into your corporate career because like I said, I've worked in P&G, and there are some elements of working in corporate which are great as well. It's not bad. Everything is bad over there, like people make out it to be sometimes. Tell me, what is it that you enjoyed working in corporate? Or was it like you were getting frustrated with the kind of work you were doing there, whether it's P&G or L'Oreal? Great companies, no doubt about it. Like you had it enough, and all you do is I won't call out the phrase that is used in P&G, which starts with intellectual, and then there's another word next to it. So I won't call it out. But were you like sick and tired of it, and you wanted more action? Was there some frustration because you could have retired from P&G with a pension, right? And easily, you're talking about easily mid-size companies would have taken you as the CEO or as the country manager. And I've seen that trend. A lot of people that I know eventually go to smaller brands and they have the time of their lives because they just apply whatever they learned there. So was there some disconnect that you finally decided you're not going to work in the corporate while you were there?
A lot of people in these careers, in these jobs, they look back at their younger years with a lot of fondness because it's a time where you're constantly learning, when you're always moving up and meeting people and discovering things. But after many years, and I assume it's different moments for different people, you get to a moment where you're not really creating much. You're always or very often dealing with a lot of complexity, a lot of decision making matrices, and a lot of just passing the ball sometimes. There isn't as much creation, I would say. You're just managing. And I can't say that it was always like that. It's not that I was frustrated, but certainly it wasn't as motivating anymore. And you come to a point where you start getting very cynic about what you're doing. And when you're hear yourself think, you start knowing that it's not the right place for you anymore. If you're in meetings and you're thinking, oh God, here we go again. Oh God, we did that 7 years ago. Oh no, here's this guy again with the same story. You start getting very cynic, and that is not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for the organization. So I think that's a moment when you realize you need to change whatever you're doing. You need to do something else.
I agree. And P&G is notorious for it. Like the people spend decades there, right? It's good that you made way for now some younger people to maybe learn the stuff that you already know of. Now, connecting it to Better Not Younger, one difference that I have seen since I delved into the startup world is that the biggest difference is the product. The actual stuff that you are selling, even though at big companies too, there's always this talk about this product is the best, nobody has it, blah, blah, blah. But once you come into this indie beauty category, you realize the difference in the quality of formulation, ingredients, etc., which was quite a gap for me. Like first time I actually felt proud of the brands that I was working with because of the formulations, not just because of all the hype and the advertising. So that's my connection to Better Not Younger. Tell me very honestly, this is a very small phrase question. Do you believe your hair care products are 100x better than the products marketed by these mainstream beauty brands?
I think that our products are making her feel 100 times better. Why? Because of a combination of what we stand for and what we deliver. And so there is a level of connection, of emotional rapport with this consumer who's being ignored that we're giving her. But that doesn't do the whole job. You have to have great products, and our products are great. They love them. Now, is it a patented product? Is it a molecule that I invented in my garage? Absolutely not. It is a marketing-led business with very robust design of products in the back. But at the end of the day, it is this connection, this feeling that I'm here. I understand you. I understand that you want to look great. I understand that you're getting older. And I understand that you have thinning and dryness and all these other hair issues that you didn't have before. And I'm here to be there with you and help you fix those.
That's so wonderful. I love it. So you are a consumer focused brand, which is very different from a lot of other indie beauty brands. But I love it because you are targeting a segment that is largely ignored by almost everybody. Even indie beauty brands, I hear the same stuff. They also tend to go younger. Catch them young is the catchphrase that exists in all the marketing jargon. So I'm absolutely with you. But I would even go beyond and say that your formulations are way better than mainstream brands, even whether they cater to this segment or not, in terms of being cleaner and having more integrity. Because a lot of ingredients that are found in mainstream brands, I know they're great companies, they're great people who work there. Some of the ingredients there are questionable.
For sure, that is a continuously moving bar. Mainstream brands have taken longer, and it takes longer because sometimes it's more expensive to do cleaner formulas. Also, it takes a lot of change in massive volume that you need to change over, and plants and organizations. They do take longer, but they're catching up. But since it's a continuously evolving bar, I think you're always going to have in brands ahead of the pack there. And that's what we're seeing. We are very conscious about what's not in the product because we can do it. We can do it from the beginning of the product design all the way to executing it. And if it's a little bit more expensive, it's okay because we're still very small. We're not playing the scale game. We're playing the game of satisfying her and giving her what she wants.
I agree. No, I'm absolutely with you. Very well said. You can elaborate a little bit on better, not younger products. I know there's scalp care involved, etc. I do read content about menopausal women. I want to know from you as to how you would define the product benefits, the functional benefits of the brand and products. Yeah, please.
Well, the first thing you need to understand is what's going on with hair as we're aging. And part of the issue in this category is that nobody really understands what's going on. And when I say nobody, women, stylists, and even a lot of people in the industry, because it has not been a core in their development. And on the other hand, people would tell you my skin is getting thinner and it's sagging and this and that. But in the hair, women will tell you my hair is changing, but they just don't understand why. And very often they think it's their own fault that they're doing. I'm coloring in too much. I'm using too much heat. I'm not taking care of it. But there are physiological changes that are happening. As early as the 40s, women start experiencing a drop in estrogen level. When estrogen levels drop, there's a lot of things that are going to happen to the follicle. The follicle is going to shrink. The shrinking follicles or even dormant follicles are going to produce much thinner hair or much less hair. The other thing that's happening is that your growth patterns change. So you may be staying in the shedding phase longer, or you may be not growing hair at all. All of that is due to the fluctuation in hormones coupled with the normal aging process. What else is going on? Our bodies are producing less sebum, which means less oils that are the natural oils that protect the hair. So your hair is going to be dry and wiry and frizzy. You're getting gray. So what is the first thing that you notice when you're getting older? You're getting gray. Well, gray hair has different texture because of the lack of melanin. It's wiry, it's porous. People don't understand that. And once you start getting a lot of gray, first you may be coloring, and that's a whole different subject because it can cause a lot of changes to the hair and the scalp. But if you're not, the texture is different. Your hair is behaving differently. And then to top it all, as we get older, our body's abilities to take on nutrients from food also diminishes. The body's less efficient, and then you start missing on some nutrients. You may have less magnesium or iron or vitamin A or vitamin B, vitamin C. So you need to supplement. There's a window here. It has been the kind of foundation of our design work for products, which is we focus on the scalp, because the scalp, you can do things on your scalp to improve the conditions of the follicle and the skin of the scalp so that you grow better hair. And that's why we have scalp products, serums, and so on. We then have shampoos, conditioners, or stylers, primarily help you with the signs of the aging hair that you're noticing. So the dryness, the breaking, the frizziness, but they also have ingredients that are good for your scalp and therefore for the follicles. And then finally, we have our supplements, which are designed to give the right supplements for the hair. That is so important for growing better hair. So it's got biotin, high levels of vitamin A, folic acid, etc.
That's so insightful. And I'm absolutely with you. I have heard about skincare, aging, of course, in the last couple of years, 2, 3 years, a lot of women speak about it, but I don't remember listening to or reading somebody talking about the impact of aging on hair care. I think this is just so amazing, the insights that you have and based on which you have developed your products. I absolutely love it. I have one small question here. You spoke about nutrients and then you have supplements for the same. You have shampoo, conditioners, you have maybe a serum for scalp. I would say that easily you could have, obviously, in the first couple of years, maybe you started with 3 or 4 products. Now you have expanded. A lot of advice that these startup founders get, and even I give that advice, is focus, right? So, but like when you decided to launch these vitamins, supplements, etc., was it because you thought the solution that you're offering is incomplete in some way?
And yes, we launched
Sorry.
the
Yeah.
regimen because we felt that there is not a silver bullet solution for the issue. And to give her just a shampoo or just a serum was not going to cut it. And that's why we created the 3-prong approach and have products for each of those. In hindsight, maybe even within those, I could have launched a little less, have fewer products, but I would have still had the 3 pillars, the architecture of the brand, the same.
Why do you say fewer? Because it takes away the focus.
Because you can't feed all your children. You have to market choicefully. And the more SKUs you have, the more working capital you need, the more complexity you bring to your operation. So I think the decision of focus or the choice of focus is an important one, as long as you're meeting the needs of your consumer.
I love it. I think this is that delicate dance between solving the problem with the most holistic and comprehensive solution, but then also thinking we'll be able to grow with this business and make it sustainable, right? So this dance you have to do, and that's a very valid insight. I love the term that I read. I don't know if you spoke about it in a podcast or read it somewhere on your Instagram, 50preneur. So tell me, how is a 50preneur different from a not 50preneur? Because at that stage, you had money, you worked for very established companies, you had savings, you could easily live your life off. At the same time, you are spending all the money maybe that you earned, you saved, like you're taking a big risk, right? If you can elaborate on both, like how is a 50preneur different from maybe a 40preneur or 30preneur, and how easy was it for you to put almost everything at stake?
In terms of what's the difference between a 50preneur and a 20preneur, it really is the level of experience. And it's just not the operational experience that I have from these big companies, but it's also just life experience and the confidence and the maturity that you have to deal with issues and complexity and things like that. So on that hand, being a 50preneur is a huge advantage. You have learned from your experiences and perhaps a little more what you're getting into. You also have a very large network. I have 25, 30 years of friendships in the industry that I can tap into and call them for anything. But I think the most important difference is this wisdom, confidence, and experience that you have. Now, in terms of your other question, which is putting everything at stake, yeah, the big difference, if you're 25 and you get a loan or ask your parents and you lose everything, you still have another 70 years to build it back, which is different when you're in my age group. So it is a risk that you need to be careful about. And that is one thing that, to be honest, I think one of your questions was, did you really think through and plan and this and that, or just jumped at it? I literally jumped. And as things started happening and more money was needed, I took more risk, and then I took partners and so on. But it is not something that I did a spreadsheet around how it was going to pan out and how much I was going to put and things like that. It did not work out that way.
That's a typical successful entrepreneurial story. You just jump, right? And by the way, that was a wonderful answer. Sometimes I get sick of this top 30, under 30 list, etc. Like how difficult it is for someone once they are crossing 40, 45, 50. They don't realize like the kind of decisions that weigh on your mind. And especially with all your friends are having fun.
Yeah, just last night around 6:30, a group of my girlfriends who are at a bar nearby, and they wrote to me and they said, "We're here, come over." And I didn't even answer, but I showed up. And they were like, "Oh my God, you're here. You're like, because you're the only one that works. We've all retired." And they all had great careers and and it's true. But yeah, I guess it's the choice that I made. But it is, yeah, you need to be thoughtful about that. If you're really looking forward to just hang out by the pool, this isn't the thing for you.
You have too much fun in your teens and in your 20s that you've been there, done that. That's the case with me.
I really have fun when I'm working. You said about the 30 under 30. That is to me a perfect example of how society just always rewards usefulness in everything. So they then came up with a 50 over 50, but they don't do it every year or whatever. It's not talked about as much. It's just one publication that does it. So to me, it's just like, why not recognize people that are successful after 50 as well, or 60 or 70 or whatever that may be.
For men, it's not a big taboo. I think for women, it needs more. So because beauty always has been more about women than men. I don't think people want to see beautiful men. They want to see beautiful women. So that's a harder battle, I'm saying, for anyone to fight. And you still made it. So I think you should be proud of that. And I'm sure you are. Tell me, what were your couple of assumptions that you had when you launched Better Not Younger? Like, I had my assumptions. I have made a spreadsheet. I'll do this in the first year, this in second year, third year, I'll be an 8-figure accelerator. Then I'll have fun. What were the couple of 2 or 3 assumptions you had, which eventually proved wrong or got totally refined? Because you, like me, you did not have any prior early stage market experience.
So I think the first assumption is that it would grow faster, so that the evolution of the business and the brand would be faster. And I think what I've realized is that regardless of the money that you pour into it, regardless of how good your idea is, the reality is to build a brand takes time. You don't do that overnight. And I think it was Warren Buffett that said, you can't make a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. So building a brand takes time. And so I think anybody out there that's building a business, a brand, you have to have patience. It takes time, right? Of course, there's some unicorn that grow like millions overnight, but the majority take time, right? The second assumption is that it would be cheaper. And I think that's all entrepreneurs go through that. I think it's like everything ends up costing more than you think, always. This was made worse too by the iOS 14 update that happened 2 years ago by Apple, which caused the cost of marketing to rise significantly. And so to be very hard to reach the consumer on digital marketing, which is starting to change and improve, but it stalled a lot of brands and caused a lot of expenses that we didn't have planned before. I think those are the two. It's faster and cheaper.
That's so insightful, because I think everyone makes that mistake of, and these are such basic truths, not the money part, but the time is such a basic fundamental truth that you see in nature, or it does take time for everything. A lot of times people give up or they get demotivated when all it would take is more
Right.
time. So it's just that they haven't spent the enough time and they feel, oh, this is not going to go anywhere. So that's a wonderful insight. Your go-to-market strategy, you started with DTC,
Yes,
right?
I started with DTC. I then went on fairly quickly to Sephora.com. Then I launched into HSN, which is part of QVC, Home Shopping Network. And then I went into Ulta, and then I went into Amazon. What can I tell you about this is too many fronts at the same time. My recommendation is that more focus. And so today, after a difficult year last year, this year is really doing very well. We're doing really well because we focused. We decided to focus on Ulta, DTC, and Amazon. This enabled a better relationship, stronger partnership with Ulta. It enabled us to simplify the operation, to need less people in the operation, and to make more money or have less losses, because we had such a complex operation. And sometimes people think that all retailers are right for you and good for your brand, and they're not. And some of them are going to cause you to bleed unnecessarily. And again, part of the speed, take things slowly and think through these choices of retailers because they can be very costly, and it's better to go one by one and build those partnerships.
I agree. Tell me one thing, the sequence of you going to retail, would you have done it differently? Just the sequence.
I think the right pacing is to establish the brand in DTC somehow, to have some traction there, and also to learn, because once you're in retail, you don't want to waste that space with low performing SKUs.
Would you jump straight to Ulta if you were to do it again?
Ulta, in my case, we never went into brick and mortar until we went into Ulta. Ulta stores are the only stores we've ever been sold at. And it's important that you don't go straight into brick and mortar, because you need to learn which are the SKUs that work better, which are the campaigns that may work better, how much is going to cost. And that you can learn on DTC. It's very fast. You can change prices, you can move campaigns, you can take products down, you can do so much on DTC. But once you're there on the shelf, and if a product is not selling, then your productivity is going to go down and they're going to return that product. Or if the pricing is off, you can't change it for another 6 months or maybe a year. So going into DTC is absolutely critical. And also you need to build some consumer base that eventually is going to go and maybe shop at Ulta. But to try to do everything at the same time, I think would be crazy.
I agree. What do you focus on in the order of importance at Ulta to move your products from the shelf?
Actually, it's the advertising. It's what really makes a difference. The advertising that I'm doing outside of Ulta, that would be the number one. So if my advertising is working, it moves at Ulta. The second thing that we do at Ulta is really participate in programs that they have, promotional, secondary placements, that kind of. To participate in the regular programs that they have throughout the year is very important.
And can you just take us through what are those programs like? And second, before that, advertising means, are you doing digital ads, like
Yes.
social media ads? Like what kind of ads you're talking
I'm
about
talking
here?
like most of our advertising is really on Meta, so on Facebook and Instagram. We've done a
Mhm.
little bit of TikTok, and it's just brand ads or user generated. So influencers that we work with that go and talk about the product. That's what works.
Yeah, but just coming to ads. So when you look at 1 year's P&L, for example, let's say you just take ads and you correlate with the sales in Ulta, do you find it to be profitable?
Yes, depends how you allocate the advertising, but the outside of the advertising, it is profitable. But if you allocate the total expense of the advertise, it isn't. But that's because I'm choosing to advertise heavily now and get the brand to profitability in the next few months, not right now.
That makes sense. I always love when people try to reach profitability ASAP rather than any other metric. If that's the objective, I'm absolutely with you. And obviously, it's your business. You don't much way better than I would ever know. Tell me one thing. So, what are the question that I was asking you before? What are those different programs in Ulta that you're talking about?
Ulta is a very dynamic and very active retailer. They constantly have promotions, events, sampling, reward programs. So they have twice a year, they have the Gorgeous Hair event where they do a lot of promos, they put more displays, or they have once a year, they celebrate Latin Heritage Month. And maybe in Latina, I can participate in that program. Or there is a week they give extra points to their loyal consumers, and you support them with your products, and they some discounts and things like that. So there's a full calendar of activities that you need to be a part of. That's how the Ulta shopper is used to interacting with brands there. 1,380, I believe, and with 18 SKU.
And did they mandate that you need to have all 18, or why didn't you just go with your hero products?
We suggest what the assortment should be, and then they make a final decision themselves, but we suggest it.
And you don't have to give me an exact number. All Ulta stores, 18 SKUs, in a year's time, what is your spend? When do you think, just if you do a P&L for the account, like for Ulta, when do you think it'll make profit for you?
You should
That's
strive to make profit at the retail in year 2.
So that means that it will be contingent on the loyalty. So it is the repeat purchase that will determine.
We still invest in marketing in our entire business, and that is a significant amount of money. It's the largest bucket of our spend. It's about 40 to 50% of our sales are then put back in the business towards marketing. But that is something that each brand is to measure how much you want to put every year, how much can you afford, because obviously it takes a lot of capital to do it. But the first few years, investment is very important. But then every brand paces themselves differently. You can get real fast. We talked about that, or you can take a slower approach and not need as much capital.
Love it. So, what you're implying is that since you will keep pumping money in advertising and marketing, it'll be a mix of new consumer
Absolutely.
acquisition and loyalty. Both have to contribute. And I'm with you. You cannot just depend on one. You need to have as many growth engines as possible. I really hope you become the best Ulta brand. And of course, you don't have any competitions. You're already on the way. Moving on, you've answered all my questions on retail. How did you go to retail, etc., how you're trying to succeed inside Alta. What is one thing, and we've already touched on it, that beauty founders do not understand about growing and scaling their businesses? You said the time it takes and the money. Isn't that generally also with things? Like when we go to buy something, whether it's a service or a product, we always in our mind have a price. I read it somewhere that things always cost more than what somebody is willing to pay for.
Most of the
So,
times,
does it have to do with entrepreneurship, or generally also when we shop for things?
no, it has to do with entrepreneurship because there are a lot of unknowns and you're constantly testing things that might not work. And so that's money you throw away. It really has to do with creating something from scratch, a model that doesn't exist. And so you need to try new things, and not everything is going to work. That's why things end up costing more.
There's no manual. I'm pretty sure with a brand like Better Not Younger, there's nothing that you can get trolled on. But I know that indie beauty brands get trolled. Even though they're trying to do way better than what mainstream does, they still get trolled. There's divergent opinion on what's natural, what's healthy, what's clean, what's something you say in your marketing, right? I don't know who these people are, but somehow they just crop up. So, have you had, even with a brand that is trying to address a gap, if I have to say one of the top gaps that exist in beauty right now, yours would be the category that you have chosen, will be one of those gaps. Do you still get trolled? Your brand gets trolled?
Not a lot, but some women make comments like, that model is not old enough, or why are you using models that already have beautiful hair, or things like, depending, you might have a 50-year-old and then the 70-year-old thinks it's too young and things like that. So picking on the age and the model is what I've seen the most in terms of like negative comments that show up. But other than that, it's not typically those things we ignore, to be honest. Thank you for your opinion. Like, we try not to engage, because when it's based on just opinions, what are you going to do? But we do take it into account. If we think if it's coming up too much, then we rethink, okay, maybe we need to rebalance the age group of our models and things like that. But it doesn't really happen a lot, to be quite honest.
Some of the brands that I know, they sometimes get very irritated with all this. Have you ever, because before there was Better Not Younger, there was no brand addressing the cause of hair care for aging women. Did you ever troll any mainstream beauty brand or someone else on social media? Have you
No.
ever done that?
No, because I've worked in brands my whole life. I've been in marketing, and I just think that marketers are doing their job. It's balancing. I've lived through my entire career. I worked in Pampers for a while, and it's, oh, why do you always put such cute babies in the packaging, or this? Why don't you choose regular looking babies? But you put regular looking babies, and then it's not aspirational. Or if you put women that look more like women on the street, and then it's not aspirational. Beauty is about aspiration. It's an emotional thing. And so I just think you're never completely right when you do marketing, but you got to keep doing what you think is right. Our communication comes across as authentic. I do worry if people, it has happened, say, oh, I don't believe that woman, she looks like an actress. That's not a real woman expressing her opinion, whatever. That I worry, because I want people to know that we're being authentic, and that our message is authentic. And so if that's not coming across, then that's an issue. And we've seen it and we've corrected it.
I love it because feedback loop always helps, right? Of course, it can go way too far at times, but I always feel that we all hold others to higher standards than we do ourselves. I don't believe in judging, I am right, you are wrong. But I've seen that with social media, everyone has an opinion and they should. But I think that kind of right and wrong has become as if I am right and I know it. I love the fact that you said you take it as a genuine feedback and it can also help you. Sometimes in the thick of things, you might overlook or you might perceive it differently than someone else.
Yeah.
So, as a feedback loop, it helps. It's wonderful of you. Moving on, this section has one question. And I'm very particularly interested in this because entrepreneurship, there comes a stage when it becomes all or nothing, right? So, initially, it's fine when your business is small, even though you might have invested a lot of money into it. But since the scale is not that high, but there will eventually come a time, and I want to know if it came in your business, where, long story short, were you faced with a decision or a choice or a situation where everything seemed lost or everything seemed, if this doesn't go right, then maybe I'll have to pack my bags with Better Not Younger? And how did you pull through? What was your thought process? Everyone says it's not the best time that you're having in your venture which will determine your success. It is how do you deal with the worst of times. And maybe I'm not that good at, so I always want to understand from my guests, what was the worst time with BNY, Better Not Younger, and what was the situation and how did you
I
overcome
think
it?
the worst time was last year when we just stopped growing and we were finding really hard to deliver on the promises that we had made to our investors and to keep the momentum that we had. And it was just like, because we tripled the business in year two. And so it just seemed like in year three, it seemed like we could do it every year. So that was the situation. And the way I managed it was to really, first of all, listen to others and take advice because I had not done it before. It was the first time I was doing it. And I got really good advice. And some of the advice that I got is size down, go back, reel back a little bit of the effort, cut your cost, go back to fundamentals, eliminate any waste, and then restart. And that was what we did. It was like we had hired a lot of people were very expensive. And when the sales were not coming in, then we were burning cash and we were having to take more debt. And so at that point, I made the decision of getting rid of everybody that I didn't really absolutely fundamentally needed in my business at that time, as hard as it was. But it was the right thing to do. And that gave us reset and start again and reevaluate what might work or not work, but not have to worry about earning so much cash every month. And that's what I did. And it turned out to be the right decision.
Letting go of the resources helped you get more cash, which helped you experiment with initiatives that could put you on the growth path again.
Yes,
Am I
and
right?
it forced me also to make more choices. And that is always good. And so I decided to exit some retailers, whatever it was, but I had to re strategize the path forward. And then it's when your computer crashes and you reboot it. And I rebooted and then we started and we kept going. Yeah.
Perfect. What was the root cause of the stall?
It really was the continuous effect of the hours working and the expense of the advertising, coupled with the fact that when we expanded to more stores and all that, they placed us in a location in the store that wasn't ideal for us. So the sales that we had anticipated did not happen. They gave us the opportunity to work with Ulta to move us to another location in the store, which proved to be very good. Yeah, it was fundamentally that the continuous increase in the cost of advertising that we could not keep investing in at the pace that we wanted to. And number two was the location in the store.
So once you pulled back from few retailers and then you got into the right locations with Alta, you were able to focus on the advertising more because you were not spread thin and turned things around. Tell me, how did you negotiate the location with Alta? And how did you get to know who went there?
From the beginning, they had placed me in the wrong place in the store. It was done that way because it was a misunderstanding in their part and perhaps not very clear communication on our part of what the brand really stands for. So they had put us in the thinning and hair loss aisle, which is a very medicinal therapeutic, whereas we see Better Not Younger as a more beauty brand, more aspirational and empowered to these women. You're trying to open up the space and empower women of this age group and make her feel part of the beauty industry. You can't just then stick her there next to all the medicines for people that are going bald, because that's not the only problem that she has, losing hair. So she does not want to be shopping there.
That's a brilliant insight on adjacencies in retail. How just changing the adjacency, not being present in the category, of course, next to medicinal, which you are not. You're also not talking about curative properties, right? You're not talking about curing hair loss or something, right?
We talk about thinning and denser hair, but we have a very extensive line. That's not the only thing we talk about.
So you are in the hair care category?
We're placed next to the prestige hair care brands, right next in some stores very close to the salon, but just around all the other beauty, the premium priced hair care brands.
Tell me just, I'm just getting very curious. Are you placed on the left of the bestseller or the right of the bestseller, or are you the new bestseller?
They have 25 different store configurations.
With every location, sometimes they have different way of organizing the category, right? Coming to the last section, which is the speed round. So I'll give you 2 or 3 phrases or a couple of choices, or I'll ask you a question. You are free to answer the way you want. If you want to use an expletive, whatever language is your go-to language, you can use it. But it's just for fun. But yeah, limit it to 1 or 2 or 3 words. And if you want to explain, that's totally all right. But I think the fun is the first thing that comes into your mind. So what's fake in the anti-aging beauty market?
It's making women think that they're going to be happier because they look younger.
Wow, I would have never thought of that. That's such an amazing insight. What do you think of this pro-aging, advanced aging? Like, they're all also anchored in aging, I believe, right?
So hard. I'm in the middle of seeing how is the best way to do it. At Ulta, it is called hair care for aging hair. Don't think it's the best, but at least it's clear. And so I don't have an answer for you, but I think in the absence of something more exciting, I'd rather be direct than to be beating around the bushes.
Especially for shopping, I think you need to be like very crystal clear for consumers, right? Instead of using very sophisticated language where they might not understand what it is. What is your favorite movie line or quote or book of all time?
I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said that, and I wrote it down. I find that the harder I work, the more luck I seem to have, because I really think that you find your luck sometimes by making right choices.
I love that quote, by the way. But coming from somebody like, it's one thing to read it, right? But it's another thing when somebody who has made it is telling me that she also believes in the same quote. So I love it. Bootstrap or funding? You have some investment, right?
Funding.
Funding. And why is that?
Because you have to think big, and it's go big or go home.
It's very hard to do it.
So funding is required.
So your big goal is you want to be $100 million
Absolutely,
brand
yes.
then, right? I love it when people, they're not guilty of wanting to become big, or they don't pretend that I want to stay small. I love it, because a lot of founders that I speak to off the camera, or they do admit that they want to grow big, they want to make a lot of money, but sometimes they might not admit. It's up to them, their choice. Just a little follow up on that. Do you think Better Not Younger would have been where it is now if you did not have the investment?
Perhaps, yes.
Because you're the first in the
Yeah,
category,
yeah.
right? I just put you on the spot there. Your thoughts on social media?
Social media, everybody's consuming, so it is what it is. And I think social media is right for the brands that have a point of view. And the more you push your point of view, the better.
Function or emotion? You are doing both.
Emotional.
Emotion, yeah. L'Oreal is all about aspiration, but you spent 25 years with P&G, which was not known to be, the advertising was very functional.
It's very functional, but like you said earlier, their products were really amazing, are really amazing. So that generated the trust in the brand and the omnipresence of the brand being so big and all that. But it all started with the functionality of the product, the superior technology. Yeah.
I agree. Science or clean beauty?
I believe in science.
So you don't claim Better Not Younger, like there's no claim
Yeah, we
around
are.
clean,
We are,
etc.
because it's the price of entry in the category, and the products are green and are clean, and that's important. But I think fundamentally they have to work. I don't think people want to compromise some performance. Yeah, I think it's science.
And you know what? This is what I feel. I get very confused when people say science or clean, and I put this question like it's googly. And you don't watch cricket. Googly is the other one. Like you say something and do something else. Because clean also has to be defined by science, right? What is
Of
clean
course,
has to be
yeah,
defined by
of course.
science. So I'm absolutely with the science. In one word, what is entrepreneurship?
Adaptability
Adaptability.
and
Yeah.
resilience.
Have you read the book, what's his name? Nassim Taleb, The Black Swan?
No.
He should read, it's a cult book now. So he speaks about resilience and he says resilience is not giving up, it's adaptability.
Oh.
So he doesn't speak about tenacity. He says it's not about tenacity, it's about resilience, which is about adaptability.
What's the name of the book?
One is Black Swan. He was a trader in Wall Street or something when the 2008 crisis happened. And then he has written 2 or 3 or 4 books. And I think those are best-selling books.
I'll check.
I can send you an email. I listened to it on Audible. And there's one more. You will love it. This brings us to an end of this amazing episode with you, Sonsoles. You were absolutely wonderful. You spoke extremely straightforward, which I love. You were not beating on the bush at all. And I love it when people are very candid. What is your message to the listeners or viewers of this podcast about Better Not Younger? Any news you want to share? Any message?
My message is to all the women there, 40s, 50s, 60s, is stand for what you believe, and we're living the best years of our lives, and it's about making the best out of it, and so feel great about it. Don't let the media convince you otherwise.
Fake media, right? So it was absolutely a pleasure to host you on this episode, and I wish you and Better Not Younger all the very best.
Thank you so much for having me, Rohit.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this JumpStart podcast for amazing guests and insights on growing your beauty brand. Visit jumpaccelerator.com and take the quiz today to find out how ready you are to make that jump to more than $20 million. While you're there, don't forget to apply for your free 40-day trial. Till the next episode.